Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to completely demystify the complex process of creating a marketing strategy. We'll be taking some pretty dense, high-level Harvard Business School frameworks and transforming them into a practical, step-by-step blueprint for success. Because whether you're launching a brand new startup or trying to inject some fresh life into an existing brand, the way you formulate your strategy literally dictates your survival.
Here is our blueprint for the day. We're going to cover the purpose of a business, the strategy formation process, analyzing the 5 C's, the aspiration decision, and finally, putting together the action plan.
All right, starting with Section 1, the purpose of business, going well beyond just the transaction. We really have to start by completely redefining what a business actually is. It's so much more than just selling a product. Renowned Harvard Business School professor Theodore Levitt took the classic definition and added one absolutely crucial word: keep. The purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer. Achieving that kind of sustainable differentiation is exactly how a firm ultimately hits its financial goals.
But, in today's hyper-connected world, we actually need to add a third goal to Levitt's definition. Nowadays, a firm has to acquire, retain, and create active brand ambassadors. Turning your customers into vocal, passionate advocates is the ultimate sign of success. Just look at the fitness company Peloton. They didn't just sell stationary bikes. By creating a unique, connected experience, they built a community of over 400,000 raving fans who basically act as a giant unpaid marketing team.
Moving on to Section 2, the strategy formation process, or how we actually build the structure.
So, a harsh truth is that most new products actually fail before they even hit the market. But following this schematic helps prevent that. If you follow it from left to right, you see we always start with a deep analysis of the market. That analysis feeds directly into our 2 major decisions. First, the aspiration decision. What value are we creating and for whom? And second, the action plan. How are we actually going to deliver it? Those decisions are what ultimately drive our customer outcomes, like acquisition and retention, which in turn drive our sales, our profits, and our overall brand franchise. It's a continuous, looping process of learning and executing.
Okay, Section 3, analyzing the 5 C's. It's time to lay the foundation.
Before making a single strategic decision, you absolutely have to diagnose the landscape. And we do this by looking at the 5 C's: customer, company, collaborators, competition, and context. We evaluate the company's internal strengths, we look at external collaborator assets, and we deeply analyze the competition. And hey, competition can be surprisingly broad. For Peloton, their biggest competitor wasn't just other bike brands. They identified inactivity itself as a primary competitor, since a lot of their buyers weren't even in the market for fitness equipment to begin with. We also look at the broader cultural and technological context. But notice what sits dead center: the customer.
Understanding that customer literally dictates everything else. Take Peloton's original price tag of around $2,000 for their smart bike. They realized right out of the gate that this steep price would instantly eliminate some buyers. But that forced them to focus deeply on their specific target market. Initially, affluent, suburban consumers who wanted a high-end studio experience without having to commute. To figure out who's actually willing to part with that kind of cash, we have to map out what's called the decision-making unit, or the DMU. In consumer sales, this might just be a couple deciding together on a piece of home fitness equipment. But in a B2B scenario, the DMU could be a highly complex, 7-person committee trying to navigate a tight corporate budget. By mapping out these 6 specific roles, which comes from Thomas Bonhama's framework, you can figure out exactly who you need to market to. You've got initiators who spot the problem, gatekeepers who control the flow of info, deciders who actually make the call, influencers who sway that decision, purchasers who process the transaction, and of course the users. You must understand who holds the wallet, who gathers the information, and who ultimately consumes the product.
Now, as part of our analysis, we also have to look at external assets under the collaborator umbrella. Peloton is a perfect example here again. They didn't build their whole massive infrastructure alone. They used Kickstarter as a collaborator to fund early R&D, raising over $300,000. They also partnered with top-tier external hardware manufacturers. Why? So their internal team could focus purely on what they did best, creating incredible, high-energy studio content and software.
Section 4, the aspiration decision. Let's frame the structure.
Once we've knocked out that deep analysis of the 5 C's, we transition from just observing the market to actively deciding exactly what value we represent and precisely to whom.
This STP process, segmenting, targeting, and positioning, is where we decide our aspirations. We divide the market into segments, select the absolute best group to target, and then craft our positioning in their minds. Like Theodore Levitt famously said, if you're not thinking segments, you're not thinking.
Let's look at how this builds in the real world. A company like Zipcar brilliantly combined multiple variables to completely nail down their target. They looked at demographic variables like age, targeting people under 25 who couldn't easily rent cars. Then they added a geographic variable, focusing on urban city dwellers and college students. And finally, they layered on a psychographic variable, aiming at the environmentally concerned. By combining all of these, Zipcar carved out a highly specific niche that traditional car rental companies were just completely ignoring.
Now here's a massive, often overlooked superpower of segmentation: deliberate exclusion. By targeting specific segments, you are consciously choosing not to serve others. For example, in its early days, Dell purposefully renounced first-time PC buyers. They excluded them entirely. Instead, they focused all their energy on tech-savvy users who actually understood how to custom design their own machines online. If you try to have general appeal and please everyone, you almost always end up pleasing no one.
Finally, Section 5, the action plan, finishing the exterior.
With our target audience locked in and our positioning crystal clear, we can finally get into the tactical details. We do this by mixing the 4 Ps: product, promotion, place, and price. And it's vital to understand the dynamic going on here. Product, promotion, and place are the elements that create value for the customer. Price, on the flip side, is the firm's mechanism to capture a portion of that created value back as revenue.
Let's zoom in on the product element for a second, because it's so much more than just a basic item. Think about the last thing you bought. Did you pay for just the core function, or did you pay 10 times more for an augmented product? A standard thermostat costs about $25 and turns the heat on and off, but a Nest thermostat costs $249. Why? Because it's augmented. It learns your habits, it saves energy automatically, and you can control it from your phone. It solves a much bigger problem than just adjusting the temperature in a room.
This augmented approach is exactly how companies justify those premium prices. Take American Express. The core product, right in the center, is just charge and pay later. But Amex added all these outer layers of value: rewards points, travel assistance, airport lounge access. They didn't just improve the piece of plastic, they surrounded it with a whole ecosystem of value that appeals directly to their specific target segment.
You also have to think about the depth of your product line. You can actually structure your offerings to appeal to different segments at the same time using a good, better, best architecture. DocuSign does this perfectly with their software subscriptions. They offer a personal tier for $10 a month, a standard tier for $25, and a business pro tier for $40. This strategy lets them capture varying levels of willingness to pay across totally different types of users, maximizing their value capture.
Okay, let's bring this whole thing full circle back to our main schematic. Your rigorous analysis of the 5 Cs drives your targeted aspiration decisions, who you're serving, and what you stand for. That directs your action plan, the precise mix of product, promotion, place, and price. And when all those elements align, they ultimately lead to your desired outcomes: acquiring and retaining customers, generating strong sales and profits, and building a lasting brand franchise filled with active, passionate ambassadors.
As you look to build your next big idea, or maybe breathe some life into your current business, remember the ultimate lesson of this explainer: you cannot be everything to everyone. So I'll leave you with this question: who will you strategically leave behind so that you can fiercely win the exact customers you want?